This is the Meat America Podcast, presented by Code 3 Spices, produced by Red Meat Lover. And now, your host, Joey and Mike.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Meat America Podcast, presented by Code 3 Spices and sponsored by Grill Great at grillgreat.com and found in retailers across the country. Also, our other sponsor, Ardent Spirits. And today, we're coming to you, live from Old Herald Distillery. My name is Joe Lampe. You may know me as Joey Brisket, but I am the Chief Beef Officer at redmeatlover.com and Red Meat Lover on YouTube. As usual, I am joined by my homeboy, Mike Radosevich of Code 3 Spices. Mike, what's up?
How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to have our next guest back on, Jamie Morgan of My Family Counseling.
Yeah.
How you doing today, man?
I'm fabulous, man. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Love to be back.
Well, we're glad to have you. You know, we really kind of see you as being our mental health expert here on the show and a voice that we can share with our audience. I think, you know, mental health is always a big part of life. And before we get into that, I want to kind of jump off where we didn't get to talk last time. The name of the show is Meat America, and we didn't talk about any meat. And I know you love to grill.
We did, yeah. So based on something that you had on one of your redmeatlover.com, right? So we saw brisket at Costco. Big old sucker, right? I mean, I don't know how big, but it's a big brisket, right? And I'm like, how do you cook a brisket? I have no idea. So I'm like, I'm sure Joey has something. I mean, it is Joey Brisket, right?
Joey Brisket, that's
so
right.
Let's find Joey Brisket, see what he's got. And he said the word wet aging. Mm-hmm. I'm like, hold on a second. What's wet aging, right? So we listened to what you had to say, went to Costco, bought that sucker, and it's been in the fridge now. We bought it August 8th. So we'll be cooking it, you know, around September 8th. We're going to give it a little 30-day wet age.
Some good eating right there, buddy.
I'm excited.
Yeah, what are you cooking on, man?
So I got a Oklahoma Joe's smoker with the sear in the middle. Dude, that is such a cool grill.
They got good products.
Yeah, I was really, we got in the market for a pellet grill last year, and so like our neighbor has a Traeger. And what's the other big name one?
Well, there's a bunch of big name ones
Pit
right
Boss
now.
is out
Pit
there.
Boss, yeah.
Pit
So
Boss.
one has a Traeger, one has a Pit Boss. They were talking back and forth about, oh, this is better and this is better and Bluetooth this and all that, right? Go to Lowe's, and I see the Oklahoma Joe's, and I think I actually reached out to you. I'm like, hey, man, what do you think about this thing, right? He's like, that's a good grill. And what I really like about it, you know, I'm a steak guy. I love cooking steak, and that sear is really like – that was what sold me on it, and it's a flawless grill. It's so I bet you we smoke wings 2-3 times a week. I'm not wings, chicken legs 2-3 times a week. We use the Code 3 Backdraft and the Code 3 Top Gun. Oh man, it's just
Lights out, huh?
It is
Appreciate
lights
that.
out. I mean, we all the time. That's what we're cooking, man. It's so good.
Yeah, we were on vacation last week at a VRBO. You know, had the house with the kitchen, and my wife had brought stew meat, and she's like, "Here, cook this." And so I'm looking around. I have stew meat. I basically have a red wine, some butter, and then the Top Gun. So I had nothing to really season this with, but I used the kind of herby, savory flavoring. In heavy doses in that, like a beef stew really helped turn up the tasty on that,
And
for
that's
sure.
so good.
Yeah, it really was. I enjoy using the products, and I think I've told Mike, you know, you mentioned Backdraft, and I've told Mike, I don't even use that thing to grill.
No.
Like, I'm a few drinks deep normally on a Friday night. I'm just pouring it on top of Fritos or Bugles or whatever it will adhere to. And
Yeah,
then
It works good on popcorn. We've had a lot of customers over the years say, hey, I use it on this, and sometimes I'm just like, okay,
Yeah,
whatever works for you. Whatever works for you.
When we grill up vegetables, it's Backdraft, and I got that sucker sitting right next to me too. So that way, you know, I start eating. It's like, oh, that's just a little bit more. And next thing you know, it's like kind of a red shade. It's like, oh, now that's good.
Well,
that's good eating.
Joe was just over the house on Saturday or Sunday. Saturday, and our buddy Lee Conway made the Bienville stuffing for oysters.
Okay, yeah.
And we ordered a bunch of oysters. As you can see, I got some scars.
Ooh.
Right there.
Yeah.
They're still a little rough right there, but
butter was popping.
we hit it with the grunt rub and the Top Gun. within the recipe.
Right.
And it worked out really good, but that was some good eating.
That's yummy.
That was great eating. I woke up the next day. I mean, I think I was full until about noon. I really was.
A lot of oysters.
Yeah, it was a lot. 4 dozen, I think.
4 dozen of
yeah.
them. Yeah.
And I crowned myself Mother Shucker of the evening. Yeah.
Oh, all right.
I was a shucking fool, man.
I get that.
I don't know what the shuck I was doing. Okay, I'll stop now. But
Yeah, where's the drummer at?
That's good.
Steve just left.
yeah, we could have used that. But kind of switching gears, I want to let the world know you're working on a book.
I am.
And when's that due out?
So we don't have an official date. We have a publisher, right? So we're ready to go with that. I'm working on the last chapter right now, and we shift gears just a hair, and we're gonna because working on this last chapter. The last chapter is about freedom, right? When you get rid of these 7 illusions that I bring up in the book, it really does help you gain freedom in your life. Mike, you were talking about that last time we were together, about how you start changing your thinking. There's a freedom inside of that, right? And then there's like this newfound weightlessness.
But there's also a lot of uncomfortableness too.
Oh my gosh!
And that's what
right?
I continually experience. I was telling Joe earlier that today was day 90, so I set a goal 91 days ago.
Okay.
That I was going to do 45 minutes to an hour of cardio every single day for 90 days.
Yeah.
Okay, so here I am. I completed day 90 this morning.
Yeah.
Now I'm back to the drawing board. Okay, now it's time for me to make myself a little bit more uncomfortable. So what am I going to add?
Yeah.
What do I really need to focus on? And I got some thinking to do over the next couple of days, but that's sort of where I'm at.
I was just checking out your new website, and I saw that you added a health section.
Mm-hmm.
That's fabulous, man, because that's kind of what we're doing over.
Emily's amazing. So she's a St. Louis girl, and we're really excited about that.
That's really cool, man, because over where we're doing, I've been doing counseling for many years, but we've brought on a chiropractor now who's also does nutrition counseling, right? We're going to have a massage therapist because, again, it's about treating the mind and the body, right? So we know that gut health and body health
Mind,
equals
body, soul.
Getting your mind right?
They never really touched on gut health 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago.
No.
I never heard about it.
No.
And now there's so much information out there about gut health.
Yeah.
And I take 2 different things for gut health. Well, one through First Form and then one through one of my buddies' companies out in Texas. But just within, no kidding, 3 or 4 days, you feel a little bit lighter.
Yeah, that's right.
Think a little bit clearer.
Well, you get that bloat off, and that really, because you think about bloat, it's almost like an inflammation, right? Well, if your body's inflamed, your brain's going to be inflamed. It's almost like you can't think clearly, right? So you get that gut start working right, your body starts feeling right, and then you get some more clarity in your mind. So it's fantastic, man. So the book, so working on that chapter of freedom, and me and my co-author, he was like, what would you think about the book coming from the idea that you're having a conversation with your son about these 7 areas of need that you need to have your mind. I'm like, that's fantastic, right? So now I'm working on recording those 7 conversations with my son Will so that we can weave that into the book.
Well, there's certainly a lot, he'll be able to learn from you, learn from the book, but not just him, a lot of other people as well. I'm 1 chapter into it. Thank you so much for sharing a little early release with me. One of the things that you kind of refer to there is Heidegger talks about there's a certain thrownness or thrustness that we have to our lives, things that we can't really control that are just sort of we're kind of born into. And I like to think about that as really the context of our lives.
Yeah, for sure.
And often what shows up in there is the content. So the content is often driven by the context. And now that might seem, I like to think about this glass of water almost, right? So this glass is the context, right? For me, it's growing up white in South City, St. Louis. Someone else's glass could be growing up black and wealthy in Chesterfield, or black and poor in North City, or white and poor over in Southern Illinois. And, within the water being in this glass, it's like it has a fixed way of being. It can be circular, right? Now, in this case, it's a clear glass. So maybe, look, any metaphor will fall apart if we follow it far enough along.
Sure.
But what I find is that more often than not, it's not a clear glass. We can't really see. We can maybe see upwards that there's a little bit more. But what I find is that when you take the water and pour it out of the glass, it has a whole new way to be. right? Now, you take this and you follow the analogy. This water then evaporates. It goes up to the clouds, or it becomes part of the ocean. But what do you think about this? One is, what do you think about this idea of context, delivering the content? And then two, how can we get out of the glass and get into the metaphorical ocean?
Well, so like the first thing that has to happen is that you have to recognize that there's a glass there in the first place.
Exactly.
Right? Because like the context is, again, where the surroundings, the parameters of which we grow up, that we live. I didn't even know I was poor until like my junior year of high school, right? Because everybody's now focusing on the SAT and the ACT and going to college. And I'm like, college? What? I had no clue, no grasp of what college even was.
That wasn't part of your context.
Well, nobody in my family went to college.
Right.
Nobody. So I had no idea that was like a thing, an expectation, nothing, which it wasn't at my home, right? So people start talking about college, and I'm like, well, so my entire world was like, wait a minute, why is college not in our realm of even possibility? My mom starts talking about it, right? And she's like, well, you don't need to go to college. Oh, I mean, I guess you don't need to go to college to drive a truck, or do construction. I mean, you can go to college to do construction. So that was really interesting. And I started living my life then out of, oh my gosh, I'm poor. And we don't realize that, right? It's like, so context doesn't even hit you until it hits you, right? Like some people may not know. Look, my son, I would say he lives a pretty privileged life. And I do my best not to spoil him and help him understand. But the fact of the matter is, he does. Does he know he lives a spoiled life? Probably not.
Right.
It's not even. It's just like, oh, this is life.
That's the thrownness that Heidegger was. That was just ending up in the cup. You had no control over how you got there.
That's right. Right. So he's there in our world now, and with the practice that I have, we do pretty well, right? So he lives a life that, hey, I want this, and I do my best for delayed gratification, but at the end of the day, he wants it. He's probably going to get it, and what's really great about him is that he's very appreciative. Like he does. He really respects and honors that stuff. But at the end of the day, he doesn't get the concept of what he has, right? Like, I worked for Illinois Mentor a long time ago, and what they do is they ship around, manage foster kids. And what they did is they would take foster kids from their foster family to go visit with the biological parents, right? I had this one girl that she was from way down south Illinois, and they had her up here in a foster home. Well, she was with a family in East St. Louis. I had to pick her up to take her to a doctor. Hey, how's last night? How you doing? She's like, I'm so tired. Why? Well, there was gunshots all night, so I sat in the closet being afraid that I was going to be shot.
Wow.
Now, even though growing up poor, I never had that.
Right.
I don't even know what that's like to be afraid of sitting in your room doing homework and getting shot. But that's the context.
And that's the reality.
That is.
Yeah, that's what's showing up right there in the...
Right. So context, a lot of times we're unaware of what's around us. So like a lot of times I talk with my clients about normal. They're like, well, what's, I just want to be normal. You know what my question is to that? Well, what's normal? Normal is whatever you're used to.
It's the context.
That's it. That's just, if normal is eating one meal a day, how would you know any different?
Right.
If normal's eating 6 meals a day, how would you know any different? If normal's never drinking anything but water, if that's what you're always done, you don't know how bad a saltine cracker tastes until you have a Ritz. And then you're like, boy, that saltine, that was nothing. That Ritz, I want more of that.
Battery, yep.
But you don't know that a saltine, it's like you don't even know. You don't know what you don't know. Right? That's 3 kinds of knowledge, right? So you know what you know. So what's something that you know, Joe?
I know I'm wearing a red shirt right now.
That's right. So that's a little bit of the piece of the pie. Mm-hmm. And then there's knowledge of you don't know what you know, or you know what you don't know. So what's something that you know that you don't know, Mike?
There's 108 stitches on a baseball.
No. What you don't know. So like
The same goes for the amount of beads on the rosary.
So here, what I know that I don't know is that I don't know how to build a rocket ship.
Right.
I know that. I'm very clear. I have no idea how to build a rocket.
For me, speaking French,
Yeah,
I know that I don't know how to speak French.
Right. So then you got you know what you don't know and you know what you know. That's about that much of the pie. You know what everything else is? You don't know what you don't know. That's your blind spots. How could you know better if you don't know better? How could you know how to be a good dad if you've never had an example of a good dad?
Well, you're going to find the context of being a father that you grew up with,
Right.
typically, and use that as a starting point for being a dad, period.
Right? But here's the thing. If this is your dad, what's going to happen to you? Same glass. Why do you do it that way? Well, that's how we've always done it. But then I come in and say, hold on a second, Joe. Here's how to be a dad. Well, I never even thought about being a dad that way. How do I do that? Well, here's what it takes, and here's the skills that you need to develop as you go through that. That's a big deal, right? Because as you start understanding that my way is just my way, and it works for me, or it doesn't work for me. Once you grab a hold of that, that changes everything. Like, so in this world of context and content, right? So context, here's a big example that I use with my married couples. So, before I was 29, married and divorced 3 times. Really clear about what doesn't work in marriage.
Right.
Like really clear, right? And then I married my 4th wife, my internet wife, right? So I married her, and we go to the courthouse and we get married. We're crying like little babies, and we come out and we sit down, and we had a green Expedition at the time. We sit down in the car and she looks at me, and I'm 31, she's 30. She says, all right, Mr. Morgan, where are we going to be at in 50 years? And I was like, man, what a great question, because I'd never considered where I would be married in 50 years, right? So I sat there for a second and I thought about it. I said, all right, I got it. And I looked at her and I said, I want to be on our front porch swing, drinking sweet tea, watching our grandkids or great-grandkids playing in the front yard. And she says, I'm down with that. Let's do that. Mm-hmm. Now, here's what changes, though. See, most people, when they're married in the context of not getting divorced. What happens there, if this is the line to get divorced, you hover right here. Hey, I'm not doing anything to get divorced. Yeah, but you don't have an awesome marriage, right? So in that context now, the question's begged, who do I have to be? Who do I have to become? What things do I have to do in order for her to want to be with me?
On the front
in
porch.
50 years.
Yep.
Front porch, sweet tea, right? Great grandkids, porch swing. Who do I got to be? Well, I got to be somebody who is attractive to be around. I got to be someone who honors her. I got to be someone who values her at every turn. And then hopefully she does that with me.
Right.
We've been married now 18 years. And quite frankly, the marriage that I have today with my wife, Sandra, I didn't even think was possible. Like it was out of my context. So it was like, we're looking at these glasses as context. Dude, this is a whole different, like, not even in the realm of possibility context. Like, oh, that's just on TV. That's Leave It to Beaver stuff. No one's that happy. Well, I can tell you I am.
Well, so then let's begin to ask some of the questions. We've talked about context as being the cup, which is here, it's transparent. So let's kind of stay on topic, but a little different. I look at the context as being, locked inside a room in a home that you have no knowledge that you're even locked inside of. Okay, you almost think it's freedom because you just don't know. Well, like you said, you don't know what you don't know, and everything that you don't know is beyond that door. So how the hell do you begin to get out of a room you don't even know you're locked in?
Yeah, I mean, that's the rub, right? I think if I had the answer to that, like just straight away, I'd be a gajillionaire, right? Because that's always nothing's a problem until it's a problem, right? And even then, you don't even want to acknowledge or understand that that's the problem, So when you think about what that really looks like to get out of the room, the first thing that you have to realize is, and you may never see, that's the hard part, Mike. You may never ever recognize that you're stuck and locked in a room.
And if you do, it's a reactive situation. And how many times have we had to be reactive just this week alone?
Yeah.
You don't realize that.
Right.
It's very easy to be proactive when you can identify the things that you need to be proactive about.
That's right.
But reactive is a whole different ballgame, and that's where mindset comes into place, or at least an understanding of dealing with past situations and overcoming those past situations and becoming better at it for future situations.
Yeah. So like unhealthy people focus on the problem and they focus on blame. Healthy people focus on solutions and focus on prevention, right? So we see a problem. It's like, that happened. How do I fix it, or how do I prevent it from happening again, right? So going back to your person in the room, there has to be some sort of internal dialogue or external dialogue to beg the question, do you know that you're locked in a room? At some point, right? Because you see, I see it all the time. 60, 70, 80 years old, still doing the things they were doing in their teens and 20s. It's not a problem for them.
Yeah, no, I'm married now for quite a while, but one thing that was always a red flag, St. Louis is a small town. It's a town of where did you go to high school? And I would, at some point in my 20s, I'm dating, and you'd see the girl she still had all of her same friends from high school. Now, there's no problem with that, having long-lasting friendships,
right.
But what happened in your life that you didn't progress to make new friends between 18 and now the age of 25, that's still your whole group? I always thought that was a little bit of a red flag, and it's not doing the same thing until you're 80, but it was a short enough a view that felt like I knew where that was going with that person.
So to speak to that point, I remember when I left for the Navy in 1989, I had a bunch of friends, and I was gone for 5 years. Now, I would come home, on leave and stuff like that. I'd be home for a couple days here, a couple days there. Excuse me. And then coming back, when I got out of the Navy, what was just fascinating to me is a majority of them were still doing the same things. 5 years of me traveling, I didn't travel the world, but, spent a lot of time in California and Texas and been around and saw a lot of different things. I've been around a lot of different cultures and a lot of different ways of being. I would say I did a lot of growing up, a lot of maturing, right? And these people were just doing the same stuff that they were doing when I left 5 years ago. Like nothing had advanced. Everybody's still going to this bar on Wednesday night and this bar on Friday night and hanging out at this person's house on every weekend, right? You don't know that's a bad thing until you figure out, ooh, I can't do this anymore. Kind of like my wake up call in my life, Joe. I going through my third divorce, I was all in that world of blame. Well, it's their fault. They're the problem. I'm not the problem. They're wrong. She did this, she did that, it's all their fault. So I'm reading this book by John Maxwell. It's like 25 ways to influence people or win with people, something like that. And he breaks it down into these principles, right? So I'm reading this book, and like one of the principles was the lens principle, how our lifetime of experiences create lenses at how we see the world. Oh, that's really good knowledge. Okay, good. So I'm reading through and I like it. I get to chapter 6, and chapter 6 was the mirror principle. And I thought, okay, so, and to paraphrase this one, it's if you have the same problems with multiple people, chances are you're the problem.
Sort of makes sense.
And when I read that, that's when the light went off. And it's like, because I hear the same complaint.
Probably kicked you in the gut.
Oh, it was Mike, you talk about a gut punch, right?
Yeah, it's an aha moment.
Oh, but that was it. When I heard that, it's like, that's me. I'm the problem. I'm the reason that ended, why friendships end. You know, we like to think that people say what they say just to complain. But there's some truth in that, right? If they're saying it, oh, that's just Mike. Mike complains a lot. No, Mike's telling you he don't like you. Mm-hmm. So you should stop that, or he's probably not going to invite you over anymore.
Right. You know, what I'm hearing is like Isaac Newton discovered gravity. Well, it's been around forever. Where the fuck was it?
Right.
For all those hundreds of years? It was everywhere, right?
Right.
But no one was asking the right questions. No one was standing in the right type of inquiry to get that. And so for you, you said, you know, how we get to that realm of, you know, uncovering those blind spots. It's about being in the dialogue. You were in the dialogue of this book and others.
Yeah.
And so how does someone who is looking to, you know, really understand, you know, the parameters of the room that they're locked in, the glass, if you will, being surrounded by gravity, but never ever having a name for it. Where do you begin to have, I mean, if you have those buddies from high school, like, how do you begin to have the right inquiries and the right dialogues and conversations to reveal this to you?
So I like what you just said there, but here's where I'm going to correct you.
Please do.
I don't get into right, wrong, and good, bad. Okay, because those come with a judgment inside of that. We don't need to be in judgment, especially of ourselves, right? Here's what we got to do. We got to ask the question, is what I'm doing in my world working? So now it's either working or not working. Because if I say that's bad, where do I go? Guilt, shame, right? I'm embarrassed because I'm a bad person. If I say I'm wrong, same way. I can't do anything right. There's something wrong with me. I feel defective. But if I get in that world of working and not working, if something's not working, what do you got to do to it? You got to fix it to make it work. Right? So then that puts you in the inquiry. It puts you in that world of, what would it take to make that work? Right? And then that's, like you said, that is where the questions start. Yeah, what would it take to make that work? Right? So so Robert Kiyosaki.
Got a fly.
Yeah, I know. I saw it flying around.
Oh,
that fly was going crazy.
I was trying not to laugh.
Oh, Mike's all over. I'm watching Mike, and here's his eyes. He's like,
well, it's like you know, lettuce in your teeth. You want the person to tell you got lettuce in your teeth.
Yeah.
But anyway,
it's hard to
digress.
say, right?
Yeah.
So Robert Kiyosaki, in his book Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? When you first hear that title, you're like, oh, this is about a rich guy and a poor guy, and it's really not. I don't know if you've read the book or not, but in that book, it's about investing principles, but it's really about context. It's about mindset.
Well said.
The poor dad is in this world of, I'll call it lack, not abundance, right? So he's in this world of lack where he wants a full-time job, he wants a salary, he wants this security. I'm the fly killer. Let that son of a gun land. That will be a dead fly, dude. I'm like Mr. Miyagi.
I'm just going to start whacking you on your head over here.
Just a couple weeks ago.
Just beat me up. I don't care. I dare him to land. That's all I'm saying.
If he lands on my face, just smack my face.
Okay. Here's the key. Here's the key to killing a fly. Watch this. Here's how you kill a fly. When it lands, okay, about that far above it, a fly will always go straight up. So if you clap your hands about 4 inches above it, you'll kill it every time.
All right, we'll give it a whirl.
Okay?
I'm already smacking your
That's how
head.
you kill a fly. All right. So it's not about rich dad, like a rich guy and a poor guy. So this guy wants security. Like this guy's got his poor dad has a great job at a university. He's a teacher. He's tenured, so he's got his 401 investment, all that stuff, right? But then his rich dad, which was his buddy's dad, was an entrepreneur. So he's out here wheeling and dealing and making things happen and running his companies, right? And he's always working at making people better. So there was a quote from that book. I thought, it was so good. So he says, when the poor dad is approached with a investment opportunity, the poor dad says, I can't afford that. Now, when you say can't, hold on. Oh, he got it right.
Yeah, he was quick.
There he is. So the poor dad, he says, I can't. Well, what does can't do? Can't says, I can't do it. And your brain stops thinking about
This
it.
fucking fly is driving me batshit crazy. That's going to make for some great podcast.
Oh, now there's two.
Yeah.
Oh, there's
Go
two.
ahead, do what
No,
you
there's
gotta do.
two
This is
of them
driving me
now.
nuts.
What in the
It's the year
hell?
of 2020 is the year of the fly around here. I know that.
20? Seriously,
Good Lord.
2020, man.
Wild, man.
Can we get a refund? Like,
No.
what do
Yeah.
we...
No refunds.
How do I turn it back in?
No
like,
refunds.
I don't want it anymore. I've used it enough. It's
Now there's
fine.
like a 0.041 chance an asteroid.
Yes. Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, I saw earlier like there's two hurricanes going to come together in
yeah,
the Gulf.
man.
Like, oh, well, of course.
And they're filled with murder bees, too.
Yeah. I think I
Two
killed a murder
hurricanes-
hornet yesterday.
Okay, yeah. 2 hurricanes filled.
It's
It's not
incredible.
water. It's just a hurricane of murder,
Of murder
hornets.
hornets. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
invading the South.
You saw where the Pentagon released the information that they have aircraft not made here on Earth.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, come on. What else can you
Yeah.
expect?
What else is, like,
It's
just,
gone on and
just
on.
bring it on.
Yeah, I
Let's
mean, with the
go.
CIA operations that have happened in Hollywood, that was what Men in Black was
Yeah,
all about.
that's
They're
right.
already here. They're just like
Yeah.
a soft intro.
It's well, because if they just said, hey, by the way, there's UFOs, everybody be running around with their hair on fire. Right? But if they just kind of, oh, yeah, these
Little bit here and there.
unidentified, I don't know what they are, they're not made here.
Right.
Well, where are they made?
Yeah.
Right? So when we say the word can't, our brain shuts down. It's like, oh, that's over. Put a knot on it and be done with
There
it.
are no resources
Nope.
that will make that happen, is
No.
what you tell yourself.
But then he says, but the rich dad, when presented with an investment opportunity, doesn't say, I can't. He says, how can I? How could I afford that? So that's a really interesting, dialogue there. It's like, okay, because here's what happens. Psychologically, when you say, how can I? Your brain now is asking that question. Yeah. How could we afford that? How could I make that work? What would I need to do to make that happen?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's the same way with anything. When you say in your marriage, I can't make this work. Well, you're right. Henry Ford said that, right? Whether you believe you can or you believe you can't,
Probably
you're right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So when you say I can't, but again, changing that context to how could I? Working, not working. When it's not working, that's okay. I just got to fix it. So now I got to look for the fix now.
So we've talked a little bit about, context and content and how there's this realm of that which we do not know that we do not know.
Yeah.
And we talked about being in getting access to that space because that's the blind spots. And if we're blind to it, we're literally powerless to control it in our lives. And by the way, being able to see it may not give us power over it, but it gives us new ways of being, new ways to react. And one of the ways you talked about how to get there is, being involved in or being around those that are involved in the dialogue. So anyone who's listening to us today, right now, is involved in the dialogue. So let's pull back a blind spot. Let's offer up something that most people don't know that they don't know. And I'll tee up on this one,
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
I'd like to have you talk about story.
Oh.
And how that is impacting our lives. I think for a lot of people, that's an area of their life that they don't know is out there.
That's true, right? So stupid flies, man.
We're gonna kill this son of a bitch before it's all said and done.
I guarantee you, man, that thing is going down, man. What's that song? Die, mother. Let the bodies hit the floor.
Oh, yes.
All right. So in life, there's what happens to you, and then there's what you make it mean. And then between those two, you tell yourself a story. That story becomes the memory. Okay? So let's break it down. What happened? That's just the facts. That's all that is. What you make it mean, that is your interpretation of what just happened, right? Did it really happen? Is that true? Are questions we should ask ourselves. And then the story is the memory. So let me give you an example. So like, let's say you're walking down the aisle at Target, right? And you see a friend of a friend. Now this guy is not your buddy, like you're not texting with him, but anytime you see him at parties or even if he comes to the store maybe, right? You know him enough where you'd be like, hey, Jerry, and he'd be like, hey, Mike, how you doing?
Right.
Okay. So you see this guy. He's on Kill a Fly. Watch him. He got it.
Got it.
No?
You missed it.
Oh.
Dude, I'm going to bring my bug assault next time.
That'll
That'll
be
be fun. That is
Yeah.
a fun one, yeah.
So, okay, so you see this guy. So you're bebopping down the aisle at Target, and this guy's coming at you. And you're like, hey, Jerry, what's up? And Jerry looks at you and then looks back and keeps walking.
Happened before.
What do you say to yourself in that moment?
What a dick.
Right? I mean, what'd I do to piss him off? Why is he ignoring me? Mm-hmm. So then Joey calls you. Hey man, what are you doing? I'm over here at Target. I just saw Jerry and that mother effer just ignored me. What'd I do to piss him off? Right? Now let's go back and let's look at the facts. What really happened there, Mike? He's distracted by the fly.
No, I'm distracted by somebody looking in the window.
Oh, yeah. So,
Sorry about that.
that's right. So what really happened there, Mike? You said hi. He didn't. Everything past that point is made up. So we're just in our heads making things up all day. And a lot of times it's negative towards us. Like I did something to piss him off and he's a dick to me.
But I think it also comes down to mindset because, man, here's the way I look at it, right?
It does.
So I have that. I know a lot of people.
Right.
And now that the business is doing well and everything else, and me and Chris are out in the community all the time, people know who we are. You never know what kind of day somebody's having.
Well,
That's one thing.
So that's right. You're right. But that's the whole thing. Here's the freedom. When you're in your story, you're pissed off at them for ignoring you. Mm-hmm. Right? When your mindset's right and you're not in your story, you're like, oh, okay, well, he must. If we're making it up, because we're making it up, right? If we're making it up anyway, why not make up something like makes you feel good? Right? Like, oh, well, Jerry must have just pooped his pants. Or Jerry has to go to the bathroom and he's in a hurry.
Right.
It doesn't really matter. We don't need to make it about us and we don't need to make it a negative. So now let's put this into the real world. So you're married, you come home, and you look at your wife and you're like, hey, honey, how are you? And she looks back at you and then goes back to what she's doing. What are you thinking? Oh, God. What I do. Here we go again. But that's what perpetuates, because now you're in a bad mood. You were in a good mood until you got home and she did that. Now you're in a bad mood. She may not have even been in a bad mood, but you're not going to treat her like you're in a good mood now.
Right. Well said.
Right? So now you come in and you were all good and she just looked at you. Now you're pissed off because she didn't say hi back to you. How are you going to treat her the rest of the night? And now we're fighting. if you're really concerned about Jerry at Target or your wife, you're going to walk up. Hey, Jerry, did you hear me say hi to you? Oh, dude, you know what? I heard it, but I was just kind of like in my own world. I spaced it, man. I'm sorry, Mike. How you doing? Right? Or, honey, did you hear me say hi? I did. I was trying to respond to this email before I got distracted. I'm sorry. I should have just, said hi to you and then got back to the email. But we don't give people grace a majority of the time, Mike. Like you said, when your mindset is right, knowing that anytime someone mistreats you, that is never about you, and that is always about them.
I'd agree with that completely. The other thing is I don't have time to be pissed off.
No.
I just don't.
It's exhausting.
It's very exhausting, and we all have our own little set of problems or obstacles to overcome. I'm not going to let somebody else's day ruin mine. That's on them. It's not on me.
No, that's so. I told a client this a while back. I love this story. It says, so if you had $86,400, okay, and someone took $10 from you, would you throw away the other $86,390 because they took that 10? Yeah, I wouldn't either. You just move on, right? Well, we have 86,400 seconds each day. Someone pisses on us for 10 seconds. Why would we throw away the rest of our day? That's just silliness.
Right. You talked a little bit about the example of, coming home to your wife or seeing, quote unquote, Jerry in Target. And those are, I think, things that we can all relate to. Where I start to see that this really has like a real impact on people's lives is whether it was something that happened with Jerry in the store last week or something that happened when they were 12.
Right.
They essentially, so what happened with Jerry in that store, let's say we got two filing cabinets, one in the past and one in the future. What they do is they create a new little file for Jerry. They add to Jerry's file. Now Jerry's an asshole, right?
Yeah.
And then they take what should be a blank filing cabinet in the future and they start taking those files from the back and they start putting them in the future. So now every time they may have had plenty of good interactions in the past, but now their whole, as you mentioned, their whole interaction with that individual moving forward could very well be changed. And that's a real example, but I think, and I'm sure you see this all the time, where people have something that happened, something a parent said when they were 12, and essentially they have a 12-year-old version of themselves running their lives.
I've seen people, especially kids, like high school kids, get completely free of a comment from like a third or fourth grade teacher. Well, you're just bad at math. You'll never do good at math. And then we do a little therapy and talk them through that. And like, now I'm an A student. Now I'm in trigonometry. Why? Because I'm good at math. But we hear that you'll never become anything. I'll never become anything. And we just, because that teacher is like, that's mom, dad, teacher. Like that's,
well, yeah.
Right. And we give that voice so much credence. Right. And we don't know, again, we don't know what we don't know, that we feel that that's real. That's truth coming at us. But we can go back and look at it. Here's an example about mindset. And I know this is a sensitive subject, but I'm just gonna go there.
Go for it.
So when we think about story, let's imagine that two ladies are raped at the same exact time, on the same exact campus, under the same exact circumstances. One commits suicide 6 months later, and the other becomes a national speaker against campus violence. What's the difference?
Fundamentally, what they chose to tell themselves about that incident.
What
right?
they made it mean.
Got it.
What they made it mean. Because the one said, I'm ruined. I'll never be, I had it coming. It's all whatever she made it mean, but it was all those negative things. And the other one says, that's not going to ever happen to me again, and I will protect myself, and I'll be in the right place at the right time, and I'm going to help other ladies learn how to protect themselves as well. Rallying cry, defeatism.
Right.
But that's mindset.
Well, and you see it, I think, Mike, in the LEO world, right? You have two police officers who maybe go through the exact same experience. One becomes an alcoholic, and the other one comes out of that and develops something that is useful in those situations moving forward. And that's always been really interesting to me as well.
Well, it's resiliency.
It is, but at the same time, you got to remember, and I'm not taking anything away from what you're saying.
No.
It's just people are built differently.
That's right.
than each
Everyone
other.
is.
So,
That's right.
I mean, there's a lot of give and take in this subject. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've seen many, many friends that have been through the same situations. One handled them great. One didn't handle it well at all.
So what causes that, Mike, is internal resources. Remember the lens that we were talking about earlier?
Yeah.
That's really what determines whether you're going to handle it. Because, like, let's imagine, like, all three of us go to Iraq strapped at the waist. So we're shooting at the same people, and we're getting shot at the same way, right? We survive. We all come back. Maybe you have PTSD now, and Joey has a little bit, and I got none. Why? It's because of what we made it mean and how we experienced it, what lenses we were looking through. Because there are guys that go over there, and it's like, yeah, whatever. It's not a big deal, and I'm done, and I'm cool, and I'm back home, and let's go about life.
Right.
And there are other guys that go and then come back, and they can't even get out of bed. They can't drive their car down the highway without seeing a bag on the side of the road and freaking out, or seeing someone on an overpass and like, I can't drive under there, like slamming on the brakes, right? It's all about that context, right? It's all about what am I making that mean, and how am I processing that information? You know, one thing that I'm doing with my son, Will, I don't try to prevent things from happening to him, and I don't go in front of him and handle his problems. What I do is I help him process what's going on with him in the first place, right? And help him really learn how to critically think, not just, oh, okay, and avoid that. No. I want you to go through it, because I want you to be able to learn. It's like a muscle, right? You know, the first time you ever lift weights or do squats or whatever like that, right? You can't do much. I remember so I played hockey all my life, never lifted weights. So I'm in the Navy at San Clemente Island, right? And, you know, a bunch of my buddies are like, hey, man, you going to come over and lift weights with us? I mean, I've been an athlete all my life. Sure, I'll come lift weights. I laid down the bar, and they put 45s on each because I was a big boy, right? Mm-hmm. I couldn't move the thing. Like, I thought I was going to die, right? They took everything off and put 5s on each end. I did it 7 times, and I thought I was gassed. Oh, my gosh. But I'd never worked that muscle before. Quickly, I mean, like within a couple weeks, I was up to 45s each, because now that muscle everything memory was there. It knows how to work together now. But I'd never done it. So it's same thing mentally. These things I'm going to talk about here, the things I talk about in my practice every day, it's like lifting weights.
It is.
The first time you do it, boy, it's hard, right?
And to teach, as you talked about teaching Will, you know, how to lift weights in proper form, to keep that metaphor going. I was having a conversation recently with my nephew who was in town, asked him how everything was going. He goes, yeah, I'm just not that good of a student. Who the hell says that? And what are you using to define it to? Because if you're defining yourself that way at the age of 10, guess what? Your prospects as a student at the age of 13, you're not going to become a better student by telling yourself, and you can hear I'm passionate about that type of response, and not letting that occur with him, not letting that occur with my own children.
Right.
Because what criteria are you using to define good student and bad student? Well, I don't do so good on the test. Well, do you know this? Do you know that answers really aren't that important in life? All the society puts all this weight on having the answers. And I'd say, like Newton and gravity, at one point, everyone had the answer that the world was flat. Yeah. How did he get to where that domain? It was through the question. So, and that's what I tell him. The answers, baby, they're not important. That's the only thing they can measure you on, though, right? Because they can't measure how well you can host a podcast. They can't measure how well you can sort of figure things out when you're giving basically ethereal pieces, which is what business owners have to do.
That's right.
We had Steve Ewing from The Urge on here last podcast, and we talked about being a businessman. And Mike, you said I'm still learning how to be a businessman, and Steve says it just never stops. And that education, my favorite definition of education, is that being truly educated is one's ability to rise to meet life's circumstances. We've known that grade A student that can't cross the street without getting hit by a car.
Right.
So that type of dialogue, like you said, flexing that muscle is, you cannot let that child think he's not a good student. That's a 10-year-old kid.
Yeah. That's a travesty, right? Because that when we speak into people's lives without them having the ability to critically think and filter that information, it just goes in raw. And that's like, well, that's truth. That's exactly how it is. And that is, words have meaning. And words are powerful, right? Again, going back to that Henry Ford quote, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. Now, that doesn't mean, well, I believe I could be a rocket scientist. That's not what I'm talking about. But there is a big piece of your mindset that if you think you can't do it, I can promise you'll never do it. But if you think you can, you're going to continually look at and work at, how do I be better?
Right.
How do I create this?
Words are, of course, the most powerful drug used by man, Rudyard Kipling.
Yep, that's right, man. No, you're right. So being able to pay attention to how, again, with Will, I speak life, right? The Bible says that the power of life and death resides in the tongue. Now, whether you're a Christian or not, it doesn't matter. That's good philosophy, right? That's important, because garbage in, garbage out. If you are watching garbage, you're going to be speaking garbage. If you're taking in garbage, you're going to talk that. If you're negative, well, that's your world that you live in. That's the glass. That's the context. You're going to see negative because that creates the lens of your life, right? So changing your mindset, Mike said that quite a few times, that mindset. Joey, as we think about what it takes to change your mindset, it's about asking those questions. Is what I'm doing today working for me? We have to measure things by the results. That's how we can tell if it's working or not working. Mike, when you run an ad campaign, how do you measure whether that ad campaign worked or not?
Sales.
That's the results. If I have this many sales, okay, that was a good one. If I have this many, I'm not doing that again.
Right.
But it's always compared to what, though, too, right? Because good sales for me, just starting out, if I got what he would consider a bad day, so I think that,
No, it is all relative, right? But you got to look at, is that what I'm looking to get? Is that what I'm looking to accomplish?
Right.
Right? So is my behavior getting me what? Is my thoughts? Am I feeling the way I want to feel? Talked about your cardio, the 90 days of cardio. I'm doing a program right now where I'm down like 29 pounds in
Congrats, man.
4 weeks, right? So the results are there. This works. Okay, I want to keep doing that, right? But before then, I was like stuck in the mud. So I'd do a little bit of this, and I'd get a little bit of traction, and then I'd fall off the wagon and go right back to gaining the weight again, and then back and forth, right? So it's like, okay, clearly what I've been doing hasn't been working. I need to figure out what would work for me. And that's with everything. Is your marriage working? Is your parent? If you're parenting in this style, but your kid's still a jerk, is your parenting working? It's not.
They want to say the kid has problems.
Yeah, well, it's just the kid. No. Look at yourself. If your kid's acting up, that's a reflection of you. Right now, look, I understand there's anomalies inside of that where that's just out of the parent's control. But it does, like, there's a responsibility. Well, I don't believe in timeout, or I don't believe in spanking. I don't believe in, okay, then you're going to have to be okay with the results you're getting. If you're unwilling to overturn any rock, then you're going to get what you get.
Right.
Well, this is kind of, we don't ever go into politics, and I don't want to go into politics here, but
boy.
I'll just say
Hold on. Let me
strap in. But Kellyanne Conway, who was, I guess, a communications expert,
Sure.
but for Trump, and her husband, I think, George Conway. That whole thing's been really well documented in the media. But
Right.
they now have their daughter is very active on social media.
Isn't she like real far right and he's like real far left anyway?
Yeah, she
Is that
the wife is far right and he's left, but now the daughter is, she's putting herself out there in like speaking out against her parents, and of course, given her relationship to her parents is a big deal. But Kellyanne Conway just stepped down for the health of the
the
children.
family. Yeah.
So
Good.
again, not to be political, because that's not my
No,
intention. It's just to
right.
show in a very public way.
That's a responsible adult that cares about his kids.
Right.
For real, right?
And by the way, so
pretty simple.
It's not a right or a left thing with me, because he's
No.
very left and she's very right, and they both put out a statement.
And always
that
being a good parent shouldn't have anything to do with politics to begin
it
with.
shouldn't.
No, but that's the thing. So many people I'm telling you right now, if there was a crisis in my home where Will was needing more of me, I would close the business. I'll figure it out. I'll be more available. I'm not going to allow my family to fall apart for the sake of money.
Right.
I read once where it says, you can always make more money, but you can never make more memories. Right? And then Tony Robbins said, create a life that you don't need a vacation from. Now, I mean, that lit me up when I first heard that. That was back in 2006. I heard that. And that started my journey of creating a life that I don't need a vacation from. And that's
Just being in a new
sets
dialogue.
the context. I mean, like, what would that even look like? What would it look like? What kind of life do I need to live that I don't have to think about vacation? Right? And that created that context for me in my world.
So one of the questions I want to ask is, we've talked about, context, content,
Yeah.
just talked about story. How can someone begin to see where they've applied stories in their own life and the impact it's having? What is your suggestion for audience members who might be dealing with a portion of their life that doesn't work the way that they want it to? What say you?
Yeah. So I think it really boils down to asking the right questions, right? So the question is to replay that memory. Well, Joey was mean to me and completely ignored me and was hateful. Is that true? Well, it felt true. Okay, that's not what I asked you. Is that true? What really happened? Well, he said this and this. Okay, does that mean he hates you? No. Does that mean he was being mean? No. What was his intention? I don't know. Well, then I got to drop it. And that's where it goes, right? So being in that conversation, that internal dialogue, right? Learning how to be introspective, looking at yourself and questioning everything. When you ask the right questions, you're able to open that up and just be open to the possibility of whatever the answer is. I don't know what the answer is, right? But that's how you do it, Joey. Because when you look at we think things as that's how it was, and we don't think there's any other way. Here's the fact: the three of us could go out here to Main Street and East Clay over here, and stand at the corner and watch a wreck. All three of us then write down what we saw. It would be completely different. Now, there'd be some similarities, right? But you would notice whatever you would notice, and you would notice whatever you would notice,
Right.
And I would notice what I would notice. Who's right?
Well, it's like showing up to a domestic dispute call, Mike. I'm
I
sure
saw it all the time.
Like this
I
this
saw it
has
all
to
the time.
had to been your world
Or
for
a
like
witness
15 years.
to whatever happened. You got one person that very, very spot on. One person that really didn't pay attention but saw it. So yeah, you're going to get different aspects of it.
Right? So then, there's a documentary on Netflix right now called The Mind Explained. Mm-hmm. The first one is about memory.
It's a good one.
It's It's so good. And we think our memory is like ultra. It's not a hard drive. It's so flawed, and our memory changes through time. It diminishes. It just goes away. And then, well, yeah, of course Joey had a red shirt. It's like, Joey's never owned a red shirt. Mm-hmm. No, I know he had a red shirt. No. Right?
I can't speak for you guys. My memory is great. My wife's memory, though, is terrible. She's always...
yeah.
Sorry, honey. I'm just having some fun here.
Hey, now. That's right. And there
Edit that out.
No, leave that in. That'll be good. All right, leave that in.
Because it's on video and audio, so there's no disputing that.
No, that's right. No, but it is. It's really interesting how we process information and what we really think. Like, Mike, how many realities are there?
I have no idea.
Joe, you got an answer for that? How many realities are there?
I know from our conversations.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. However many people there are on this planet.
Right. I mean, yeah.
Right. There's a lot of people that still believe there's one reality. Well, yeah, it's just reality. Reality isn't that simple. However many people there are, that's how many realities there are. Because see, here's the thing, man. The way you're experiencing this conversation is different than how you're experiencing it.
Then you got to play in the roles of mental illness.
Yeah.
And education.
Oh, my gosh.
True.
Everything else.
The context applied.
Different than how I'm experiencing it. Different how every person's experiencing this conversation right now. It's all different. Well, who's right on how it's going? We all are. Mm-hmm. I hate... It doesn't feel good to say, but like really, perception is reality in your world. Right? And we got to honor that. So when our spouse says, you're being mean, we can't say, no, I'm not. Because it's real to her that you are being mean. Instead, what we have to do is we have to say, well, you know what? I don't want to be mean. And I don't want you to think that I'm being mean. What do I need to say differently so that you don't think I'm being mean? That gets in the world of, I hear you. This is not who I want to be. What do we got to do different? Being open to that different way of being. Because all she's really telling you is, how you just said that didn't work for me. That's all. Oh, okay. Well, I don't want it to not work. What do I got to do to make it work? And then she's going to tell you, well, if you'd have said it this way, or if you'd have done it this way, that would have worked better. Okay, I got it. I'll do that next time.
Yeah, no, and what you're talking about, I've used a lot in my life, and it has worked beautifully when I've chosen to use it, because sometimes you talk about mirror, it's really difficult, even when you know what you should say, to get so stuck in being right about it and to argue it. And there's a great saying out there, most people would rather be right than be loved.
For real.
And they'll sacrifice that fight to be
pass
right.
on that one.
Yeah.
Right? If you're wrong in the way that you're right,
Who cares if you're wrong?
you're still
Who
wrong.
cares?
You know, no,
We're not
no,
perfect.
No, what I'm saying is, if you're wrong in the way that you're right, like, hey, you're still wrong.
Yeah.
Like, you lose.
Yeah.
You lose if you're right, but you blew up. So at what cost? Well, hey, man, you sure did get your point across. I mean, now your son's destroyed. Like, good job.
Right.
Right? Or now your wife's leaving because she can't stand to be around you anymore. Good job. Well, but I had just had to prove my point. Well, you did. Now you get what you get.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or as we used to say, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit.
Yeah, that's still popular
heard
at the
that
house.
from my
Yeah.
You ever hear that one before?
All the time. 4-year-old coming home spitting that out. I was like, I like this.
You're like, I like that one. That's
Yeah.
a good one. You get what you get and you don't throw a fit.
I love it, man. Yeah. Hey, dude, look, I could stay here with you for hours.
For real.
We're running out of time. But before we shut this down, I want to turn it over to Mike. And Mike, is there any base you want to cover with Jamie?
No, I mean, I think this needs to keep on reoccurring and diving into certain issues and whatnot. But let's tell people real quick about the book, and then you can go ahead and sign us out.
Yeah, Jamie, tell us, all about your how we can find you across the entire interwebs. Also, please, last time you shared suicide prevention number. Could you please do that again for our guests?
Yeah, so the suicide prevention, it's a text number, so it's 741-741.
741.
Right? So anytime you're feeling like in mental distress where you feel like you want to take your life, or you're just feeling like really out of control, 741-741, someone will text with you immediately. So that's really great. My website is www.myfamilycounseling.com. That's www.myfamilycounseling.com. The book is called Master of Circumstance. I would say it'd probably be out in another 2 to 3 months. It should be out before like the Christmas rush. I created a website for it that I'm working on right now to create a button to pre-order. So you can pre-order the book here probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, yeah, and if you're listening to this at home, especially if you're in the St. Louis area, you should book an appointment with Jamie as soon as possible, because with all the exposure from this podcast and the new book, you're going to have to raise your fees in order to accommodate everyone.
That's
so
right.
I highly suggest you call Jamie now. Also, if you're listening to this on audio, the biggest compliment you can give to us is to head on over to iTunes, give us a 5-star review. If you're watching this on YouTube, well, you guys know the drill. Go ahead and hit that big thumbs up like button, or even better, subscribe to our channel so you can follow our adventures as we continue to meet America. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks,
Thank you, man. Hey, I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right.
Subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel at redmeatlover.com. Learn more at meetamericapodcast.com.